Speaking about Olivia, not her real name, this week, and the strip search that she endured at the hands of the Metropolitan Police, I thought it would be an idea to discuss some of the powers that the police have in order to strip search children. Olivia was strip searched in 2020, the same year that child Q, a 15-year-old at the time, was strip searched by the Metropolitan Police. Child Q's incident was held back from being made public for 2 years and only came to light this year, which has sparked obvious outrage. And Olivia's story certainly won't help put that genie back in the bottle. Now, a child, in the eyes of the law, is anyone who has not yet received their 14th birthday, as explained in the Children and Young Persons Act 1993. And in the eyes of the law, anyone from 14 who has not yet reached their 18th birthday is classed as a young person. Both children and young persons are classed as a protected group as per the College of Policing's guidance, in which it states that their treatment in detention is governed not only by domestic legislation but also by the United Nations Convention on the Rights of a Child and ratified. The UN Convention on the Rights of a Child defines a child as a human being below the age of 18 unless the relevant laws recognise an earlier age of majority. Now, when a child or young person is in custody, there are things that need to be observed that are different from adults in custody. And that's what's important here, especially as more and more children and young people are getting involved with crime and ultimately the police. Police, when dealing with anyone, child or adult, must have reasonable grounds to justify any search, such as suspicion of drug or weapon concealment. In the case of Olivia, they were said to have found in her possession 2 items which could have caused her or others harm. Now, this was dismissed by the court as not being a weapon, but rather used for the young girl to self-harm. However, police still have a duty of care to prevent her from harming herself. As I said yesterday, I do not dismiss the fact they needed to search her, although this should have been done prior to her being put in a cell, or should have been done properly, which evidently was not done. Now, police also have to get permission from a supervisor. I believe that if orifices other than the mouth need to be searched, then permission must come from an inspector or above, who themselves believes there to be something concealed. Now, that's under PACE Code C Annex A, Part 2. Police must also obtain consent from the detainee, obviously under threat, as police will tell you that if you refuse to give consent, it could be used against you when and if the case gets to court. In the circumstances of a child or young person, consent is only valid if their parents' or guardians' consent is also obtained, unless the juvenile is under 14, when their parents' or guardians' consent is sufficient on its own without the consent of the child. That is PACE Code C Annex A, Part 2B. Any strip search must also be carried out by a registered medical practitioner or registered nurse, unless an officer of at least inspector rank considers this not practicable, and the search is to take place under paragraph 2A1 of the same code, which states, body orifices other than the mouth may be searched only if authorised by an officer of inspector rank or above who has reasonable grounds for believing that the person may have concealed on themselves 1. Anything they could and might use to cause physical injury to themselves or others at the station, which in this case is unfortunately what they found. Registered medical practitioner or registered nurse are the only appropriate adults aside from the child's parents or guardians who may be present at the time, but also searches can be held in private with no appropriate adult, but that must be at the request of the young person, and police cannot perform the role of an appropriate adult. By young person I mean somebody over the age of 14. And that is PACE Code C Annex A Part 5. PACE Code C Annex A Part 11A states clearly that a police officer carrying out a strip search must be the same sex as the detainee. Part B of that same says that the search shall take place in an area where the detainee cannot be seen by anyone who does not need to be present, nor by a member of the opposite sex, except an appropriate adult who has been specifically requested by the detainee. During all interactions with police, we, as members of the public, must be treated with respect and dignity, something most police fail to remember, but not more so when a member of the public or detainee is being strip searched. PACE Code C, Annex A, Part 11, D, states that the search shall be conducted with proper regard to the dignity, sensitivity and vulnerability of the detainee in these circumstances, including, in particular, their health, hygiene and welfare needs, to which paragraphs 9.3a and 9.3b apply. Every reasonable effort shall be made to secure the detainee's cooperation, maintain their dignity and minimise embarrassment. Detainees who are searched shall not normally be required to remove all of their clothes at the same time. For example, a person should be allowed to remove clothing above the waist and redress before removing further clothing. Paragraph 9.3a, as we just made a note of, says that as soon as practicable after arrival at the police station, each detainee must be given an opportunity to speak in private with a member of the custody staff who, if they wish, may be of the same sex as the detainee, which may relate to their health, hygiene and welfare that might affect or concern them whilst in custody. In the case of a juvenile or vulnerable person, the appropriate adult must be involved. Paragraph 9.3b of PACE Code C relates to that of an adult female who is 18 or over, so not entirely relevant for this particular video. Now, PACE, or Police Criminal Evidence Act, is something that most people won't even bother to read when, if offered, by the police custody officers, but it's so important whether you're an adult or a child. It's not ideally written for a lay person to read and understand, and police genuinely only give you the snippets of the code to read when you are in a cell, but you are entitled to the full version. In fact, this is a guide to PACE, so it explains PACE. It has PACE and it explains PACE. There's an awful lot of stuff in there. When I was arrested in London by the Met, they gave me 3 pieces of paper with some information on. 3 pieces of paper. So you can see that they certainly don't give you the full code, but you can ask for the full code and you can read it. Now, if you're a parent of a child or young person, then you should be requesting a copy of PACE so that you can remind yourself of your own rights and those of your child or young person. Being messed with by the police is not a game, and we must know where we stand at all times in order to prevent these inhumane bastards insulting and assaulting us, in most cases because they've been butthurt rather than any real concern. One last thing to remember: children need to be made aware that they have the right to complain if they do not feel that they are being treated fairly or lawfully. If a child makes an allegation relating to their treatment by police officers or staff, the matter should be referred to the local authority designated officer, who has the responsibility for investigating the allegation. In this case, it would probably be PSD, which is likely a complete waste of time, but should be done nonetheless, to prove, if and when it goes to court, that you have offered the police every opportunity to deal with the complaint before taking it that far. Please educate your children on this. There is a lot to take in, but the points I've just given you are probably the most important ones with regards to being strip searched. They don't need to have committed a crime for this to happen to them. In some cases, all they need to do is embarrass a police constable, and they could find themselves facing a complete nightmare. Big thank you to channel supporters, especially these guys. Your support is truly appreciated. Don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts, as I know many of you will. And until next time, stay safe, look after each other, film the police and other officials.